recording with my buddy, Mr.
Hey, maybe for you, I'll give you one of these. How's that?
Wait, hold on. Oh, wait, fuck you. You. I thought you were
What's
doing.
going on,
I
man?
thought you were
Yeah,
doing.
let me mute my phone so I don't get that.
For everybody listening, this is my buddy Ernie. We became friends in college, primarily getting blackout drunk and playing Mario Kart and listening to the Mark, Tom, and Travis show. Um, and I think you were one of like the first 10 guests I ever had on here.
Back
And
in the day, yeah.
yeah, and completely unrelated. Do you have an iPhone? My phone updated last night, and
Yeah.
it's logging me out of every app every time I open them. YouTube,
Weird.
Twitter, WhatsApp, Facebook, and then after like the second or third time, the apps think I'm spamming, so they start saying like you need to do double verifications. I don't know what the fuck's going on.
That's a pain in the ass.
Not
I
not
do.
important, just
My
kind
shit
of a
updated
bitch.
though.
What?
My shit updated, but no issues. Luckily, a little different, but we'll get used to it, right?
Yeah, so I mean that might be kind of like a that might be like a marker for kind of how good everything is in our lives. That like this is the primary like fuckery is that like my phone's not doing well. Um,
I love it.
but yeah, so for everybody listening, yeah, so like I guess what kind of got me, what made me I think text you is I think, and this is what you've always done, and you've done this since I met you in August 2009.
I've gotten better at it. Yes,
You've always
yes.
just been like a more so than me, just kind of like in terms of politics, like you've never gone ape shit. You're always kind of like, everyone relax. And you did what you always do. And you were like, I didn't vote. I mean, I remember when Trump went to North Korea and met with Kim Jong-un. I remember you making a post years ago. You're like, hey, and for everybody listening, Ernie's a liberal guy. And you were like, hey, he's trying to get nukes away from the crazy. Like, can we all
Right,
calm the fuck down? And this is
right.
good. And people are like, you're fucking normalizing Trump. And you're like, Jesus Christ. And you did it again after Trump got elected. You're like, I didn't vote for the guy, but hey, let's move forward. Let's do this shit. And people were seething and boiling their blood in the comments about how you are truly the
Yeah.
second incarnation of Adolf Hitler. And so I text you. I was like, do you want to come
E-
back on?
even my aunt, who wrote a long diatribe, and she's a very smart woman. She's a doctor. I've talked to her in person about this. She's told me, she goes, I think you're too nice to these people. You've got so much grace. And I'm like, well, because it's not about grace, or it's ultimately we all live in the same country. And if all we're going to do is yell at each other because you voted for the other guy because you don't agree with me, we're never going to get anything done. Where we are today is not going to change. And tell me that today, in today's climate, I think actually, especially because of Donald Trump, frankly, we should take a step back, look at our own biases, right? And say, all right, I didn't vote for the guy, but what are some things that he might be able to do that might be good for the country? I'll give you one that I think may be great for the country. Him teaming up with Elon Musk. I think personally, Elon Musk has transformed politically for a variety of reasons. But that being said, it doesn't matter. He's now aligned to Donald Trump. And whatever you think of Elon Musk, he's doing things for society that are good. Like
Yeah.
just they just
Yeah.
are, right?
Yeah.
Like everything he's doing with what he's done that, NASA hasn't had any advance in the rockets in 50, 60 years. He did it in what, a decade,
Yeah.
right? We have reusable rockets. That's incredible. And he's
Yeah.
going to continue doing these things. So he can bring some of that genius and expertise to the government, and that's great. Why would we be against that? Why would we be against the path we're on fiscally is unsustainable? Why would we
Mhm.
be against somebody who understands how to cut cost, who just did it at Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Who decimated it and it's still working fine? Why would we be against that? That's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and so, yeah, man, I've always been that way. Now I still have profound disagreements. I watched your podcast with one of your guests recently, right after the election. I don't remember his name, but I had profound disagreements with. He talked about the war in Russia and what
Which
what
one?
Trump wants to do in Russia, right?
Yeah.
And how, or excuse me, in Ukraine. I forgot the dude's name, but
I'll look it up.
yeah, you guys talked about it. It was a great conversation. Now I disagreed with it. Now I say that to say we can still disagree without being disagreeable, right? I'll tell you something that bothers the hell out of me, Tommy. For those that don't know, because obviously you guys don't know me, I'm in law school, right? I just started law school this semester. I've got exams, actually, my first exam on Friday, or my second, actually. I already took one class over the summer. But one thing that bothers the hell out of me, Tommy, and I don't understand this, man, law school is a very liberal place. Now, you said I was liberal. I've never called myself a liberal.
No,
I'm a
yeah.
moderate Democrat, but
Yeah,
it's
no,
okay.
no, no, that's no, that
It's
is an
okay.
important distinction.
Yeah, yes,
You are not the fucking dissolve the nuclear family
right,
and
right,
transition children. No, you're someone
exactly,
who in the '60s like would have voted for Kennedy. Like
exactly,
that's
probably. And we'll
that's
talk,
who Ernie is.
yeah, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
But no, like, so look, I've talked to folks because they'll see what I posted and they'll say, "Man, that's refreshing." Like to hear to hear people and have this message of unity to try, right? Because obviously nobody's perfect. We all have our biases, but at least to try to go through the bullshit. But Tommy, something that blows my mind, again, law school being a very liberal place, you have conservatives or people who maybe lean conservative who feel like they cannot speak their minds, who are scared. And Jesus Christ, we literally founded this country, literally, to be able to say as we please.
Yeah.
And that started, I mean, it started before Trump, but but when Trump came along, it felt like, oh, you couldn't really say, and again, I'm not a Trump guy, but for those who voted for the man or who were supporting him back then, you couldn't say you were supporting the guy, right? Because it was, oh, you're a racist or you're this or you're that, and it and it's absurd to think that. It's absurd to think that the majority of Americans now, because they are a majority, voted for Donald Trump, or even before, even if it was a minority, right? They elected him to the Electoral College, which is the way the system works, that they're all racists or that they're all bigots or that they're all, it doesn't help anybody. Um, and for you to demonize somebody, just because of who they voted is just to me, just silly, man. It's so silly.
It's also like a painful way to live.
That too.
You think everyone's out to fucking kill you.
I
That's
mean,
like
right?
that's subjectively not an enjoyable way to live. And yeah, that's there's a madness to it that I can't help but feel. The tit for tat, the swerving left and right. Even now, it's like Trump won, and it's anything like any power you give the government will be eventually used against you. Like it
Right.
just will. It happens
Oh,
every time. And I think maybe I'll just come back to the whole subjective thing. It's a very painful way to live if that's how you think the world is going. If you truly think everyone around you, and this is why like I voted for Trump, but I also voted for like Biden in 2008, and that's why I like all or not Biden, Obama. That's why I always say like I know for a fact I don't have it figured out. I meet people on the podcast who are smarter than me.
sure.
I knew people in med school or in getting into med school who were much smarter than me. And then you talk to them and they'd be like, no, I know people smarter than me and higher and higher up. And, I've had people on here from astronauts to legitimate like generals from the Pentagon and they lean both ways. And I guess I'm just not willing to be like, in any other field, I would look at this, whatever, neurosurgeon and be like, brilliant guy, top of his class. And then as soon as it comes to, I don't know, tariffs, I'm like, this guy's a fucking retard. Like, it's for, so I guess for me, it's like humility and that I'm pretty certain I'm not the smartest person on the planet. But then also subjectively, like you don't want to live in that kind of that torture chamber
Yes.
of like everything around me is fucked. They're
Yes.
they're the Christian fascists are gonna come kick down my door and execute me because I'm gay. And like that's a miserable life. And I think that's right because and I snap all the time, but like I think that's why when I like see you post something like that, it just makes me think of like the just above all else, it seems to be a like a good self-preservation instinct. It's
Yeah,
just
and
like,
look, man, and look, I'm trying. Look, I frankly I feel called to do something about the division and the nonsense and the insults, and it's got to start somewhere, right? Look, nobody's coming to save us. We live in a democracy.
spoiler alert.
I mean, right? Like this
Hey,
is us.
spoiler alert.
And so, okay. So if we want to change it, it has to be up to us to make that change, to run for office one day on these platforms, right? To talk to each other civilly, right? Something that I think the Democratic Party has gone off totally off the rails, right? Is and you hit it on the head, man. You hit it on the head. Is it's this victimhood mentality. Well, I can't get ahead because the racist, oppressive system is holding me down. I'm an immigrant, right? You know this story.
Yeah,
I didn't speak English till I was 9 years old.
yeah.
Okay. I came to this country. We came with nothing. We knew two people in this country. and we've done pretty well for ourselves. I had a 10-year very successful corporate career. I've owned a home. I have owned multiple luxury cars. That's not to boast, but and that's not to say I'm special in any capacity. That's just to show the beauty of America, right?
Yeah.
That if you just work hard enough and if you want something bad enough, you can get it, right?
Yeah.
So that victimhood mentality of I'm a victim, I'm always being oppressed, everybody hates me, everybody, as a Hispanic immigrant man, I've barely felt it, frankly, living in Georgia almost my whole life.
But for everyone listening, I've told stories about Valdosta. I met Ernie at Valdosta,
Right.
fucking
Right.
1865 time capsule. I mean, I think my second day there, I heard more hard R's than in the previous
Sure.
19 years of my
Yeah.
life. I was like, fuck. So yeah,
Right.
no, no. Having met you in, like Confederate territory.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
right? But again, man, that's where the Democratic Party has gone off the rails. Another part which you can't say out loud, but I'm saying it, somebody's got to break the fever, is the transgender issues that are going on in this country, right? I think most Americans would agree. If you are a transgender woman or man, you should not be competing against biological women or men, or at least definitely against women, right? You're obviously biologically superior in a multitude of ways. That shouldn't be something that's because you say he's bigoted. It's just reality, right? And maybe we can find a way to they can have their own leagues. I don't know. We
Yeah.
nobody knows the exact solution, but even if the counter is well, it barely happens. It's 1%. That may be true. That may be totally true, and that is true actually. But you know what? That doesn't change the fact that you're still hurting women's sports in some capacity, or the fact that these men should not be in these ladies' locker. It's just not okay,
Oh,
right? Or how about why should we let kids under the age of 18? I believe this wholeheartedly. We should use the power of the government to ban anybody under the age of 18 to be able to transition permanently. Because, Tommy, did you know when you were 16 years old or 18 or 15? I sure as hell didn't. Nobody
oh.
does. You think you know, but you get a little older and you realize, you know what? Maybe that is what they want to be. And that's okay. Once
Yeah,
they're
go
18,
for it.
they're an adult, go
Go
do whatever
wild.
the hell you
Go
want to do.
wild.
But if you're 18 years old, you're going to do things to your body that are irreversible. Sometimes, um, you've got parents who object mightily to their children doing this. There was just a court in California, I believe, a father who just lost his child. These are things that I think most Americans, a reason why, frankly, I think Hispanic Americans and a lot of African Americans shifted to Trump this time around. It's just people think it's just absurd, right? It's like, come on, where's the common sense?
Yeah.
Those are some things that we think we need Democrats. We need our own party on the center left in the middle to say, all right, we've gone a little too far. Now, that doesn't mean we don't respect transgender individuals. That doesn't mean that they should have every right. That, of course, every person should. Of course, they should. That they're
Yeah.
people, right?
Yeah.
Of course. But in these aspects where you're encroaching upon others' rights and or competition, where it's just biologically you're just superior, it just doesn't make much sense. And I think most Americans agree with that, wherever they are.
Yeah, no, I mean, dude, some of those fights, I mean, they beat the dog shit. Like, that's fucked. Like,
Yes.
that's fucked, dude.
I mean,
Like
Tommy, tell me it doesn't feel like an episode of South Park.
it 1,000% feels like it absolutely does. It absolutely does. I remember working at Flip Flops as a bouncer, man. Like, it would one guy gets too drunk and starts getting like he's a little belligerent. You want to get like two or three guys to escort him out. Three bouncers to like one drunk dude.
Right.
Conversely, one guy like me, I could throw out two drunk girls at the same time. And I'm 5'8". I'm not even like you just pick them up and throw them out. It's fundamentally different. And then but it's also like what doesn't work is dressing it up like it's like, oh, you're against all like no, not kids. Go
Right.
fucking wild. Dude, I live in Portland, Maine. Do you
Right.
really, yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you really think, yeah, they're all a bunch of like conservative guys? Like, no, not at all. But like, it's what when you dress it up and say, oh, you're against. It's like, no, I'm not against anyone doing anything. It's just like, it's kind of fucking weird to do it to kids, and it's really weird when grown men want to go in a locker room
Sure.
or a
Sure.
woman's bath. Like, that's not that's a predator. That's a
Now
predator.
I agree. I agree with that entirely. There is an argument, Tommy, because let's be fair. We always have to look at both sides. There's an argument to be made against what I said. which I said we should use the power of the government to make illegal, right, any chemical transition under the age of 18. The counter to that is, well, it's my child, and I as a parent should have the right
Yeah.
to decide with my child, with professional medical help, whether or not this is good for our family. I understand that. I get it. I don't know how you
Yeah, no,
reconcile.
that could be
You know what I
illegal. That
mean?
could be illegal. No, I'm with you. And
No, no, I don't think it's illegal because you just make it. I mean, you just legislate it,
no,
right?
no, but we no, no,
Legislate.
but no, but I get what you're saying. No, just for
Yeah,
the sake of the conversation. No, I do understand that where it's like I'm like, no, you shouldn't be able to do it to kids. It's like, well, then as like a more conservative leaning guy, where does it come into the whole the government shouldn't come into my bedroom? And it's like, well, now you're going to people and it's like, well, fuck, that is a and what's the difference between my kid goes
yeah,
to a psychiatrist and
exactly.
goes on I've been on Ritalin since I was 15
Right.
and
Now,
it's
it's a
benefited my
legitimate
life.
argument.
And that's
It's a, le-
fair. No, that's
it's a
fair.
legitimate argument, but I still think it's overridden by the need for government. I say government, and I think I'm thinking in the federal because I do think it should be a federal. Now, you can do it at state level too, but I do think it doesn't override only because of the and people may vehemently disagree, and I understand, and that's okay. I'm not saying it's my way or that. This is just what I believe, and I think most Americans are on my side here. Um, I think ultimately it doesn't override the need for government to protect children, especially from something, because there are sometimes zealous parents who seem to push and or not push back against some of what their kid is maybe going through as a phase, right? So,
Yeah.
look, I think it's a legitimate debate to have. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that, what I'm saying is totally correct. We should listen to what the other side also says and listen to them, especially as a parent, because that's a big deal about, the ability to kind of let my child do what I think as their parent has brought them into this world, right?
Mm.
What they should do or not. But I don't know, man. That's stuff to me that I think most Americans agree with. You know what I mean? The other thing, Tommy, that I think we forget, even in this election, right? When's the last time that the Democrats had a 60 plus majority in the Senate? 2008, right?
Yeah,
That
I was gonna
was
say
already
Obama, right?
it was 17 years ago, right? Almost crazy, right?
Jesus
Holy shit.
Christ.
I know we're getting old, man. I don't know, frankly, when the last time the Republican Party had a 60 seat majority. I really don't. I should have
I have
looked it up.
no
I have
idea.
to imagine. I have to imagine it's a long time ago.
Like Reagan, maybe?
Yeah, maybe Reagan.
Yeah, like
Not even then, because during the Reagan years, they had Democratic houses. Remember Tip O'Neill and Reagan always came to deals. So
yeah.
I don't know. But I say that to say it further kind of bolsters the point I'm about to make here. In the Senate, unless you've got 60 seats, right? You don't have a filibuster-proof majority. So literally one senator could stop all business from going on, right? With a filibuster. The only way to break a filibuster is by invoking cloture, which is you need 60 senators to vote for cloture. We're nowhere, no political party in the last almost 20 years now has been anywhere near having a 60 seat majority. I say all that to say we need each other, right?
Yeah.
To work together to pass these bills. And both parties should look at it that way. The Republicans today, they've got the presidency, the House, the Senate. They've got the Senate by 3 seats. They've got the House by two. You lose a couple of these people,
Yeah.
you're not getting anything done. You need the other political parties. So I say all that to say that should help us to moderate and to say what can we do together. Now it never happens, but it's a good reminder that that neither party's getting these crazy mandates
Yeah.
to impose their will as they'd like.
Yeah.
Something
And
to
it
think about.
no, it is. And it's like back to it's like the meme, regardless of its accuracy or lack thereof, of like, man, people really just voted for cheaper eggs. Like, how stupid can you be? And it's like, how stupid can, and I don't mean a like broad brush, but it's like, if that's all people wanted, then wouldn't you make eggs cheaper and then go about everything else you wanted
So
to do?
you don't think that was the primary reason why Trump won again? Inflation?
No, I think it was a huge one. But what I'm saying is, it's just like to examine, just like extricating myself and just viewing it like we're just looking at a history book between two fictional
Yeah,
nations.
yeah,
When you jump on people for being like, they just, man, they really voted for, against trans rights because they want cheaper groceries. It's like
oh, I see
that
what you
that
mean.
that should be like the biggest red pill of like, yes, primarily people are, if you can pay
Yes,
all the bills. Hey, what about these trans? Like, yeah, dude, I don't care. It's
yeah,
not really, but when, so, but my point is though, is like you've served. And if I'm just again just like removing myself and just looking at it, let's pretend the Democrats bring me on and they're like, how do we win? I would say like you've made Trump in all of the legitimate critiques of Trump. He's a thrice married billionaire who lives in a gold penthouse in the sky. Let's be honest, he's not Joe the plumber.
Sure,
But the problem is what you've done is you haven't gone against him and said, well, this is what we're going to do for you've said he's against trans rights. And so you don't want to die on a hill of kids should be able to chop their dicks off. And then the other guy just goes, groceries are going to be cheaper. You're handing him a win. The analogy I use is like, imagine if there's someone else with the exact same podcast as me, but I chose to start doing mine out in the field in December in Maine. And it's freezing and there's like 4 hours of sunlight and it's just a horrible, depressing place. And I'd be like, I don't know why Ernie went on Bobby's podcast instead of mine. I'm smarter than Bobby. I've known Ernie longer. And it's like, I get all those things. In a marketplace of ideas, Tommy, you beat Bobby. You're handing Bobby a win because it doesn't matter that Bobby's retarded. Ernie doesn't want to go sit in 30-degree
right.
weather in Maine. So
Yes,
every doctor Bobby gets, an astronaut, it's not that they like him more. They just don't want to go freeze their dicks off. Like, Tommy, you're handing them a win. Go get
yeah,
an apartment and
yes,
then compete. So that's kind of how I look at it is like Trump you can attack him every which way you want. You don't have to support him with NATO. You don't have to you can say he's misogynist. You can say he's you can, all of those things. But what you don't want to do is say, kids should be able to chop their dicks off at all costs, and no matter what, we're thinking about giving Ukraine nukes. It's like you're not competing on the playing field. You're handing him an easy. So that's just like how I look at it. Is in general, like you're not you can beat him. You absolutely can beat him, but you're not approaching him in the marketplace. I'm a better interviewer than Bobby. Tommy, I get that. It's 20 degrees in Maine. Ernie doesn't want to go sit in a fucking field.
but you're absolutely correct. I mean, you're totally
Now, I know
correct.
there's a lot of flaws in that
No, 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 no,
analogy.
no,
I
no. But
get it.
you're right in the sense that the Democratic Party was not running. They weren't running on ideas. They were just anti-Trump, right?
You're just giving him a layup.
Yeah.
Make him shoot from the 3 point line. It's
They
like he was.
thought they
It's
thought
like
they
Yao
thought
Ming.
it,
It's like he can't. He has no range. Push him
they thought it
out.
was enough. The argument, and I would make this argument all the time, obviously turned out to be wrong, was that he did nothing in the 8 years since he actually became president, right? The four that he wasn't, to grow his base. That's what the thinking was, and I believe this wholeheartedly. Because he hasn't changed, he doubles down on everything he's done.
Yeah,
But the difference, and I think this would have been true except for inflation, which obviously was the biggest thing that hurt everybody, right? Um, when prices go up 26, 25% over a 4 year period, and all you're saying is, well, the economy's great. And although they're factually correct, GDP is at, we're going to between 3 and 4%. We've got the lowest unemployment rate in 50, 60 years. You've got the stock market setting
an
all-time
all-time
records.
high.
Yeah, you've got compared to the rest of the
Crypto's
world.
at an all-time high.
Yes, compared to an all-time record, excuse me, to the rest of the world, our economy is again rebounded. Inflation actually is down to 2.6% to the 2 to 3 mark that
That is not. Yeah,
so that's it. Look, that's a hell of an accomplishment. If you would have told somebody 4 years ago, yo, we're up at
coming out
the
of a pandemic. Yeah.
right, we're out of a pan. I mean, those are good, but again, that's all great. But when the people feel that everything else is 25% more expensive, no matter what you do, and you're not getting a raise to compensate for that. You could tell them that all day, but it's never going to register.
No.
That's why you ask the American people, are we on the right track? And they tell you no. And that's why Donald Trump ended up winning, in my opinion. I don't think it would have mattered much what the Democrats would have said because they presided, especially with Kamala, which was the beginning of the downfall for the Democrats.
I think
You just,
Biden probably would have won.
I don't think so. No,
Sorry. Keep going with keep going with your thought. That
I
I
think
want
I
to.
think Biden would have lost worse, but
All right.
but I think that's the point is when Kamala presided, whether fair or not, because she was the vice president of the United States, when you preside over the inflation, over 25% inflation over 4 years, it's hard to make the argument, well, I'll fix it, or even though it is already fixed, it doesn't feel like you did, so screw you, right? Another thing that I think is important that people either don't realize or don't want to think about because it just complicates things. But again, if you're explaining this, you're losing, but it's the reality the figure of inflation, 2.6, 8%, right, is the rate of change, the rate of increase from year over year, right? Just because inflation is down from 8 to 2% doesn't mean the prices come down, right?
Yeah.
It just means that they're not going up as high.
The rate of acceleration isn't,
Right,
yeah.
right. But people think inflation is that. Well, why aren't my prices down? I don't get it. I mean, if inflation is down, because that's not how it works. Matter of fact, that would be deflation, and that would be horrendous for the economy. You don't want that to happen. So I say that to say, I don't care who's president, right? Prices are not going to come down. Donald Trump says he's going to unleash energy. We're producing more energy than we've ever produced. It, how much more can you do? And if you do more, that's fine, do more. But how much is that really going to affect the price of oil or other things that will have a down, a cascading effect to lowering prices? The reality is it's not going to happen. But again, politically, it's a very easy argument to make. Hey, 4 years ago, prices were 25% lower. I'll bring it back. Whether it's fair or not, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It's a political argument to make.
Yeah.
And it won him the White House again.
Yeah. No, and that's, and to, again, in terms of like the layups, and it's like I look at it as, and I've said this a trillion times in the podcast. I voted for Obama in 2008. I voted for Romney in 2012. In 2012, I was pre-med, and I was like, "Fuck Obamacare." 2016, I only voted in the primaries, I think, and I voted for Bernie because that was 2 years after my older brother committed suicide, and I was like, "Free healthcare seems like a good idea." I didn't vote in the presidential election because my life was so fucked. I ended up moving home and getting
Sure.
sober, doing that's how fucked I was. 2020, I voted for Trump. In 2024, I voted for Trump. But my point is like I always try to say that in terms of like I'm not died and having grown up in a conservative Catholic household, like, fucking like, but even when I in Valdosta, like when I knew you, that was like coming off of like voting for Obama, and I was in a fraternity in Valdosta, Georgia. Like,
Yeah.
so my point is like I've never had problems kind of shifting my mind around. So when I look at these things, I feel like, and maybe I'm biased, but like I feel like I can legitimately say like, hey, let's just remove ourselves and look at it as a game on how to win. Like what you don't
Sure.
want to do is what you don't want to do is again hand a layup. It's instead of a dressing Trump and instead of getting like the smartest economist you can find or something and being like here's a hole, here's a hole, here's a hole, or all of the generals. I mean, I just read a book, Return of Great Powers. The entire thing is a destruction of Trump and how he's not who you want. Great arguments. And yeah, some of that voted for Trump, like still good arguments because
Sure.
they're not these hyperbolic thing. You have these admirals and these people saying like, and this is what I think, and based on this, kind of calm, measured shit, kind of like a pilot voice almost,
Yeah.
where you don't get shaken. But again, it's easy to hand things to it when it's like, hey, and yeah, like that case in California, dad's losing custody, kids getting chemically castrated. You're like, dude, that's not. You're handing him a layup, or if it's just like, we're gonna send a quarter of a trillion to Ukraine. You're like, dude, that's not the regardless of pro anti-Ukraine independent sovereignty. When it starts to turn into like nuclear saber rattling, you start to go, why do I give a shit about this country and others? Just
But I would
kind of
I
being
would
cold.
disagree. We should talk about that. I wanted to talk to you about that because of the podcast.
All
But I would
right.
disagree. Let's
Oh
talk
yeah,
about
no, no, no. And that's just so
that. Yeah, yeah.
regardless of its actual
I
threats.
think you're right, by the way.
Is he going to
It
keep
doesn't turn
moving?
the American,
It's
I think you're right. It doesn't turn the American people on, and because it's
And I'm not talking about the objective morality of it. People are like, well, NATO shouldn't have expanded. It's like Russia also is. It's hey, spoiler alert, it's a zero sum world. If it's not us, it's
well,
China
but
or Russia. That's kind of the
well, let's
yeah,
talk about
go
that.
for it
Let's talk
then.
about that. Let's
But
talk
my,
about
but, but
that.
my point is to finish
Yeah,
my point is like
yeah, go ahead.
you don't want to hand the like you said, regardless of if GDP is up or down, when people don't feel it. So the
Yes,
same, regardless of it's if it's 1 in a million women that get their ass kicked by
sure,
a
of
dude in a skirt, it's still a bad hill to it,
course.
don't meet them on that. Put your podcast in a heated apartment. Don't go out in a field. So regardless, when it looks like you can't help people for the hurricane, but we're gonna send more fucking whatever cluster bombs, regardless of its objective truth. What the average person sees who just is gonna go get bananas and take the kid to school, you're not serving up an appealing dish.
I
But
agree.
yeah, go on with yeah.
I agree. No, look, number one, I totally agree. Again, you've got to stand for something, not just against something. I mean, I think that's politics 101,
It's
right? If
yeah.
people felt like Kamala and the Democrats didn't care for them, for whatever reason. I mean, I think Trump's commercial, she's for they, them, and for you. I mean, that is if that doesn't talk about the culture wars of where we are today and what people think, and I think rightly so, the Democratic Party stands behind and for. I mean, there's really nothing better, and I think it part of that is what cost us the election. But
Yeah.
yeah, let's talk about it. So Ukraine and what's going on now.
I also
So
don't know. Sorry, I don't know which episode you watched, and
it was
just for the sake of my own argument,
it wasn't dude, it was right after the election. It was a gentleman you had on who has worked in these like intelligence agencies. I mean, he clearly knows it, or maybe he's a consultant, I think. He's a
Lee
consultant.
Slusher.
I don't remember his name,
My
dude.
my point is whoever I have on, agree or disagree, I always push back about. I'll never go more than like 10% because I just don't like those styles. So I've had on people here, one guy who just went off on a rant about how the Jews killed JFK. Now I don't believe that at all.
No, 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 no.
I think the United States killed JFK.
Sure.
But even with a guest like that, my style of interview is still, instead of being like "fuck you," I'm just like, tell me more. So for whatever you watched, I don't know who it is, but he might have said Hitler was all right, and I would have been like, tell me
No,
more.
no, no, no.
That's
No,
my
this guy
style
was
of
great.
interview, just for the
No, no, this
record.
guy was great. This guy was very smart. Look, he had the worldview, and this is what I wanted to talk about. It's something that frankly fascinates me because I don't understand it.
Sure.
I just really don't. He had the worldview that Donald Trump has, right? The worldview, essentially, that first America First worldview, which is to say, we want to isolate from the world. We don't care so much about what happens in Europe. We don't care really what happens in Ukraine, right? Why should we care, right? Look at all the problems we've got here, and we have plenty, right? The border, the things we've been talking about. Excuse me. Folks continuing to get jobs, homelessness, whatever. There's tons of
Yeah.
problems. But that's kind of the thought, right? Is hey, let's worry about us, and if maybe we get to it one day, why would we spend trillion or billions and billions on Ukraine? What does it matter to us? So I push back. I push back a lot, and it's interesting to me because really it feels like the parties have switched in this. It used to be the Republican Party that used to stand for American strength abroad and American power and ensuring that other powers that are
Shipping
trying to
lanes,
undermine
bases, stability.
exactly right exactly so and now it's a Republican Party that is led by Donald Trump that is an isolationist party that would rather yell at its friends than yell at Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping. It's very odd to me. I don't understand it. There's a way. Look, is it true that NATO has not been putting up their part of the bargain? Yes, yes. The rest of the Western Europe, is it true that they've not been uh, spending what they need to spend? Just to make it clear here, there is no fund, right? It's just you're supposed to spend on your own defense a certain percentage of
Yeah,
GDP,
yeah, and
right?
it's that,
So
yeah.
it's the 2% figure, whatever it is. But there is no fund where people pay into it and it gets used. That's not true, right? Sometimes Trump makes it seem like it's the way. It's just not the way it is.
Yeah.
But is that true? Yes. And was it time for somebody to come along and say, "Hey, you guys need to put up a little more"? Sure. Like why not? I don't think that's unreasonable. But as with Trump, in many instances, it's the way in which he tries to do these things. It's going to Europe and talking about how we may not defend our alliance because they don't pay. It's about castigating these folks and seeming them out to be guys that, you know, make out of the United States suckers, right? Suckers, we're suckers, go find other suckers. You could do all this diplomatically behind the scenes. You could talk to your allies and say, hey, this isn't, we shouldn't do this. This can't stand. I need you guys, right? There's a way to do this, right? Because
Yeah.
he doesn't do that, for example, with Putin. He doesn't go out and shit on Putin like he does
Mhm.
Macron or Merkel. And that to me is very odd
Mhm.
because these are the
That's
people
fair.
that
Yeah.
these are the people, Tommy, who have literally died with you. We may have talked about this before, but there's only been one time in the history of NATO, in its entire, 80, 70-year history, that Article 5, which says if one gets attacked, we all rally
Was
and we're
us going
all
into Iraq, right?
right. Afghanistan, actually. But it's
Afghanistan.
the
Yeah, no,
only
no.
time.
So they came and helped us with a war that
Yes.
wasn't popular.
That is
That's
the
fair.
only time
Yeah.
that we have ever done that.
Yeah,
And
I
and
think
this goes
Belgium
to
sent troops. Yeah.
another point, Tommy, which which a lot of folks who side with Russia or who have this kind of America First worldview for whatever reason always come back to. Well, NATO is on Russia's borders. I mean, right, NATO is attacking, and NATO said they would never expand. A couple things. NATO, and don't believe me, believe the man who used to run the Soviet Union, Government. He said, there's video of this. You can find it as soon as we get done with this. that NATO never promised not to expand eastward. So that is a lie from the Russians, not from me, not from the
Okay.
CIA, not from Gorbachev, the guy who used to run the Soviet Union. Number two, NATO is a defensive unit. Tell me when in the history of NATO, NATO has attacked, invaded, or used any of its forces without responding. I'm not talking about America. I'm talking
Yeah,
about
yeah. Reactionary.
we
Yeah.
have certainly done that. America has certainly done that. Iraq, but NATO and NATO troops, it's never happened.
Hmm.
Furthermore, the reason why NATO keeps expanding eastward is because these are the countries that are literally bordering Russia, and they are scared to death of Russia because for all of their history, they have been ran and or attacked by
Or
Russia,
satellite block nations. Yeah.
right? Constantly, right? The last thing I'll say, why should Russia, or any country for that matter, tell the free world what alliances to make or not to make? Why does Russia have a
Yeah.
veto power over what countries get to join what organizations? And why should anybody give credence to that?
Hmm.
So that to me is why I you put all that together and what you see, and we've talked about this before, right? The main reason why I oppose Donald Trump, you put all that together, and it is literally the world order for the last 70 or 80 years that America has led, that America helped to win a world war with, right? And instead of standing up for those values that have made literally by every objective fact you want to look at a stronger world, a less poor world, a more interconnected world, a more technological world, and now we don't want to stand up for that world. That I don't get. I just don't get it.
That's fair.
If you were to tell, and I'll let you in here, and I've talked a lot.
Oh.
If you were to tell any American general, hey, for less than 1% of the American defense budget, with no American troops dying, we get to decimate and stop our one of our number one political, geopolitical enemies in the world. That's a heck of a deal. And in the interim, because we're not actually sending them money, we're sending them weapons, and then we make new weapons here, right? So
Yeah.
just as a point of
No, no, no.
clarification,
It's all going on.
right?
Yeah, it's us. It's
Right,
not going anywhere.
right. And so that all sounds like a good deal. Now, nobody wants to be in a nuclear war with Russia, of course, but that all that put together to me, I just don't understand it. I just don't get it. Maybe you have a retort for it, maybe you don't.
No,
Maybe
it's
your point of view. I really don't.
yeah, no, it's kind of how I look at things when it's like, um, so I've had on this author, David Vine, super left-leaning guy, professor at Georgetown, wrote a book called Base Nation. And his whole book is about how bad it is. And in my mind, I read it and I thought about how good it is. And it's like the 700 or 800 bases we have around the world. And it's just sort of and it's kind of a tough place to go, but yet you do have to kind of put on the thinking cap and just be like, speeches and morals aside, you're like the history of the world, and this is where I will agree with you. If you don't have a monopolar or unipolar world, you have a bi or multipolar world.
Precisely.
There is no the reality is that there is no world where it's just we get along, and that sucks, whatever. But it's just certain realities suck. Your parents get old and die. Your dog gets old and die. You have heartbreaks, relationships. You gain fat. You lose money. There's just a lot. That's just life in general. It's no one's fault. It's just what it is. And so, on one hand, I see the whole, we get out of Afghanistan and Iraq, and 3 months later, we're funding Ukraine. It's like fair. No, I get that. But then it's also, and then it's, do we or did we not promise not to expand, regardless of all of that?
Sure.
There is sort of the, shut the door, turn the phone off. We're gonna fuck these people because that's what the world is. And the more I, kind of grow up, and it's very easy for me to say because I'm in the United States, I don't have to go serve and all that.
Sure.
But there is part of me that's like, it's like turn off the microphones. How do you think? I just imagine kind of sitting in the. It's like, how the fuck do you think the world runs, you pussy? It's you. It's either great here. Do I got a new iPhone. Where did it come from? It came from a factory in China. I'm not standing up and saying end slave labor in China,
And the minerals come from Taiwan. We're just going to have to defend here in a few years, man.
And
Another
so
one.
when you look at, and I'm just like, there are certain things where we know we live in an artificially subsidized utopia, and morally and objectively, it's not correct. If we give it up, it's not that everyone plays fair. It's
Exactly.
China's at the top of the pile, and
Yes.
that's a sad thing to look at. So, if we don't have slave labor in China, China takes over, and we have labor here broadly and in simplified, kinda. Yeah, and it's if you don't take it, man, someone else will. And again, it's very easy for me to say who's never spent a second downrange surveying.
Sure. And same here.
But exactly, exactly. But part of me does look at it and it's like, hey man, how the fuck do you think this world? I mean, truly, like, how do you think this world works? The world works under the tread of a tank, and it's easy for me to say because all those people died in Ukraine. I don't know any of them, but another part of me is like, hey man, you have a chance to fuck over another country. That's how the world works, dude.
and
And it's
Tommy,
sad. And maybe we have to talk to God face to face one day and be like, why didn't you stand up for this? But the reality is, man, is like it's American empire or it's China. It's just it's sad. I'm sorry, but it's dating is a zero sum game. That you don't shake hands. One of you gets the girl and the other one of you is fucked. Love is war. Do you ever go, well, I just really feel, no, I got the girl, I got the family, fuck that guy, I win.
and not just that, but
No, so
what
my point is,
history, of
I
course,
do agree. It's dark and it's dirty, but like, dude, that's the fuck do you think? And to
Tommy.
go on that point,
Yeah,
hey,
go ahead.
man, there's a reason why it's not, I don't even think it's a bad thing that NATO doesn't pay their fair share because that means they're all dependent on us and they have to use our weapons, which means that if we really want to, we can also turn this big. It's a power game. It's dark, man. This is how the fucking world works, though. I don't want
And
a strong Europe. I want a Europe that goes, Tommy, can we have some more ammo? And I go, I'll allow it. Heavy lies the crown, but fuck
and what
off.
else? Have
I
you
don't
just
even
said
know
that?
what argument I just made. I don't even know where that lands on the
No,
political.
no, no, but no, you're
Hitler.
correct in the sense that again, it's a zero sum game. Either you're winning or somebody else is.
Or you're losing.
It's really that simple. And at the end of the day, what else does history tell us? History tells us that these despots who move on to invade and take over territories, they don't just stop at one
And
country.
they never
They
stop. Yeah,
don't.
no.
They never stop.
Power's taken.
And so the reality here's what's going to happen. Either Putin wins in Russia, and he's already, by the way, if you haven't seen this, threatening Lithuania and Poland. These are NATO members. He's had rockets go over their borders. He's never hit them, but he's not. I mean, he's not stupid, right? He's going to continue. And when that happens, we will have to go fight
Yeah.
because that's NATO territory. And so therein lies the fundamental question. Do we stop Putin in Ukraine without American troops, with American assistance, with American weapons, or do we let him win and fight him in Western Europe? Because that's and the other part,
It does eventually come.
right? And we're already in a global conflict. I mean, I see this, I think, very, very clearly. You've got the new axis of evil, if you will, right? Which is going to be Iran, right? An Iran that is trying to be nuclear, and Iran that supports, by the way, Hamas and the Houthis and Hezbollah, the largest state sponsor of terror in the world. We know this for a fact. You've got a China who is helping to supply Russia with the materials to build their weapons.
Weaponry and
You've
robbers,
got North Korea who now has
or
troops
physical troops in.
and is fighting. Okay. You've got the Houthis down in Yemen, right? You've got Hezbollah in Lebanon. You've got Hamas in Israel. We're already in the middle of a global conflict.
Yeah.
And if we step back, again, we tried this in two world wars, and eventually we had to not step back because the world needs us now more than ever. Now compared to 100 years ago, we are the preeminent world power.
Yeah.
Um, that's where we are. And I don't know if Trump's not an idiot. Trump's a smart guy. He's been president twice. I hope he understands that, but I don't know that the people that are now going to be surrounding him, like a Tulsi Gabbard, um, I don't know if they're the right folks, man. I hope to God I'm wrong. I do
Sure.
because obviously I want our country to succeed, but I don't know. It scares me. It scares me because I think it. because John Bolton said this, right? His former national security advisor. He thought if Trump won again, that he would try and actually pull out of NATO.
Yeah.
And now he can't actually do that. Congress actually passed a law because of Donald Trump, actually, just in the last administration, with which many Republicans voted for. That's actually you cannot do that. You need the congressional authority, but that's okay. What he can do, because he's the commander in chief of the United States military, is to say, "Well, I'm not going to send any troops. I don't care if
Yeah.
I have an agreement. Stop me."
Yeah.
And if that happens just once, think about that, Tommy. If the United States is now, because you're only as good as your word. If you don't show up when you're supposed to show up, sure, nothing's going to happen to you. Nobody's going to come after you, take you to jail. That's sure, you can do it. But the word and the bond you just broke,
Yeah.
the message that sends to people like Putin or Xi Jinping or Kim Jong Un
Yeah.
is a scary message. The United States will no longer enforce freedom the world over. And that's a scary message to me.
So everything we said about Trump is like, I think he knows everything you and I said. And
Of course.
I think if you were to go talk cynically, I think if you were to go talk to him, he'd be like, "Yeah, no, I agree with everything you just said." You'd be like, "What?" He'd be like, "But I'm also I'm winning a campaign. Doesn't make it right. It's slimy."
So you think it's just campaign talk?
No, no, I have no idea. I have no idea. What I'm saying is like as a
Right.
possibility, he could just be like, "Yeah, no, 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 no. We're not. Day one, we're sending another trillion to Ukraine." And the reality is about 1% of Republicans will be like, they'll be like, "Yeah, well, if Trump thinks it's that's the reality," or he doesn't, or we do pull out. And I think the importance is also this is one thing I've thought of, I kind of thought early on is like it's less about Ukraine than it is now under Biden. Again, credit where credit's due, the CHIPS Act coming back home, but like TSMC and all those hyper advanced fabricators in Taiwan, we do need for our world and our military. I tend to think that what we're doing in Ukraine is all the good, Russia, advance, yeah, NATO allies, all that good shit. I also think it's we're kind of doing it while like looking at China.
Sure.
Your entire thing is this is what's going to happen if you go to Taiwan. Well, what's going to happen? We'll go 2.5 years. We'll send $1 trillion of weapons. Well, that does start to make you go, huh, that they're not stopping in Ukraine. You might talk to a general, but hey, no, Ukraine's fucked. The entire thing is we're making a point to China about Taiwan. That that also might be what's going on.
100%.
Yeah,
I would agree. Totally.
and it
Show of
really
force.
it does come back to this, man, is like, and this is like dark, and I do fully believe that, like, I think you and I are both God-fearing men. I do think that because I think about this a lot. I'm like, when I die and I have to go talk to, what am I going to do? Go
Yeah,
single-handedly end the war? No, but there is your words matter and what you believe. So I do think about it. I'm like, if I had to go like talk to Jesus Christ today, pour my soul out in the cleanest, most honest way, I would say it's a very ugly world, but I think the US is the least worst empire. And at the scale of 8 billion people, and it's never gonna be perfect as far as human history goes. It's less shitty now than it ever has been.
yep,
And therefore, you have to defend it. It's those who beat their swords into plowshares will be farmers for those who didn't. There's
precisely.
nothing noble about just bending. I'm not saying, and that doesn't mean that there isn't horrible grift in the military industrial complex. That's not co-signing all of that, but at the same time, it's if you know something is the least worst system for a planet of 8 billion people, it is then your duty to defend that. And that might mean an unpopular war in Ukraine. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't also is like, well, those sound like Raytheon talking points and be like, fuck Raytheon. But like, that's also kind of how I look at it. Is like, I don't just have, I truly believe it's the least worst empire the world has ever had.
Absolutely.
And therefore it must be defended. And
It
that's
must.
ugly and that's shitty and that's man burying your fucking kids in Ukraine or I mean as someone that's lost hey, I know what it's like to bury a it's horrible.
Awful.
The wailing and but like I don't think there's a world where you don't have this. If you don't have it in Ukraine and Taiwan, it's gonna be 10 times bigger in 5 years. And like I hope Trump's fucking lying on just for campaigning. Because like that's my honest
No,
that's my it's like if I had to talk to God, like that's what I would say. I'd be like, that's what I truly believe. I don't own any Raytheon stock, so I don't have any conflicts. That's what I truly believe.
I don't think he's blustering, but I'll tell you this. I think there's enough people in the government, in Congress, that
Who do believe what he's who are for what he's saying.
well, no, actually, who actually I think fundamentally are not for what he says. I think
Okay.
there are people who believe kind of what we've been saying. No, this
Yeah.
is an empire, and we've got to continue the empire. We've got to continue our dominance one way or another. I don't know. Look, I either way, we're going to be fine, right? As we're closing, I know you're going to be here at noon.
Yeah, I gotta hop in
We're
a
fine.
minute.
This is the greatest country in the world. We'll figure it out one way or another. Um, but that to me is scary. And look, and this is why standing up for these values. This is why people to me who stand with Palestine, who would support Palestine over Israel. I just don't. I don't get it. I
Queers for
mean,
Palestine. You're like,
yeah, right. I mean,
doesn't make bombing kids good, but it also means like, hey, what do
exactly.
you
Nobody wants war.
no,
Nobody wants people to die. Nobody wants escalation. No, who wants that? Nobody wants that, right? We are, as you said, blessed that we've never experienced anything like that here. But the reality is, to me, it's just such a moral. It's just here's Palestine, a country ran by Hamas, people who have American blood on their hands, who have their own people's blood on their hands,
throw gay people off the roofs?
who have gotten more money than Europe got in all of the reconstruction after World War II. And what have they done with that money?
Beheaded
They've used
people.
it for rockets and for
Yeah,
tunnels.
it's like
And on the other side, you've got a free democratic country where millions of Arabs live, where the only country in the Middle East where Christians have not dwindled compared to everywhere else, who are the only ally really that we've got really in the Middle East, because Qatar and Pakistan and India and all those guys are a bunch of rats. So if we can't if we can't back up those guys, who are we going to back up?
yeah. And you can then have your laundry list of problems with Israel and be like, yeah, I fucking get that, but it's least this isn't you choose the song you want. It's what's the least worst
Right.
thing. That's
Right.
the reality of the, hey man, I don't like that, I don't like this, but I'd rather I guess I don't like that. I don't love it, but it's a lot less worse than that one. That's life, and that's why I think about it a lot. I'm like, am I okay with having to explain that to God? And to me, I would say like this is what I truly believe. And if I'm wrong, show me I'm wrong. And if I have to pay for my sins, I'll pay for my but like that is like that's where my heart is. It's not like I'm making this argument and then checking my Raytheon portfolio. Like that's fucked. But
Right.
um but in terms of I was gonna say in terms of we'll wrap it up with this is like allies is when I saw that post and then somebody commented like basically a negative comment on it and I replied to him and I was like, fuck you, like Ernie's the man and you're a pedophile. And then I screenshotted it and sent it to Cal, and Cal went in and also commented. I'm like, that's what allies should be. It's like where none of us have seen each other in 15 years. And even though Ernie and I disagree, I'm still like, hey, fuck
Exactly.
you. Hey, fuck you.
Exactly.
And I texted Cal and Cal got back to me. And I hadn't talked to Cal in like 11 months. He was like, I'll get you. We went in there. I was like, fuck that. And Facebook ended up like banning you for like a week because I was like, you're a pedophile. But like, that's what it should be. Why? Because it's a zero sum world, man. Go throw the fuck 'em. So,
And
uh,
sometimes your side wins, and sometimes your side loses.
but you gotta stick up for your
The
homies, and
beauty of this country is that in 4 years, you'll have a chance to beat that same party or person who beat you. That's what makes
exactly, and it's never a good look to have someone make a very like rational and calm statement, and then someone else be like, "That's wrong." It's like, no, 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 no. That's the mature and calm. You don't want the pilot to be like, we're gonna get through the hurricane. We're gonna bank left, and it's gonna be a little longer. But we're gonna get. You don't want the other pilot being like, "Oh, we're fucked. Oh, we're fucked." Like, who do you want on the fucking intercom? It's I don't know. So, but
you,
Ernie, we
man.
gotta we gotta wrap it up, dude.
I'm with
It's
you.
awesome chatting. I love you, Ernie, as always. You're
Hey,
a good
man.
man. I love having you on. I love having
Great
you on,
conversation.
man.
Love you. Call me
Yes,
whenever. Happy to
yes,
come on
sir.
whenever.
Yes, sir. I'll
We'll
text
have
you
to be
this
on
episode.
for some of the Trump things he'll be doing here. We'll have to
Ooh,
chat.
we got some.
All right, brother.
It's gonna be interesting. All right, Ernie. I love you, brother.
Love you,
Thank
man.
you so much for
You
your time,
too.
man. Guys, thank you.